What's up, everybody? UFC 303 International Fight Week. Pereira versus Prochazka 2 goes down this weekend. And I got to give a shout out to the UFC, man. This card from top to bottom on paper is loaded. This is an outstanding card, one of the best of the year thus far. We still have a lot of time left in the year. But great job by the UFC to save this thing, man. Anytime we get a Conor McGregor card, it's always exciting to see Conor fight. However, we tend to get a little bit of a weaker card, which tends to kind of be the trade-off. However, the UFC's really built this thing out, man. International Fight Week, big fight feels. Can't wait for this card. So in this video, I'm going to be giving a prediction and a breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelims, working our way up to the main event. And for these early prelim fights, they're going to be a brief breakdown and my prediction. And as we work our way up into the card, I'll give a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown, but the time codes will be down below. So if there's a specific take you want to hear from me, feel free to do that. If you're a real one, stick around and watch the whole thing, but let's waste no time. Hop right into this. All right, our first fight of the night, Ricky Simón, Vinicius, Oliveira. Guys, I think that this is honestly one of the easiest fights on the entire card to predict. I'm going Ricky Simón by decision, right? Barring that Oliveira lands some sort of viral flying knee again or some sort of shot that Ricky Simón just doesn't see coming. I mean, Oliveira has shown that he has no answer for the wrestling. He has no answer for the wrestling, and Ricky Simón, you know, I understand that maybe he's a little bit more on the decline, right? But he's out there against some of the top competition in the division. It's not like he's fighting scrubs. You know, Ricky Simón's a guy that has shown, even in these losses, he's able to take guys down like Song Yadong, who has really good takedown defense. And I just don't see how Oliveira, who struggled against wrestlers, you know, in the past, I don't see how he has an answer for the grappling of Ricky Simón in this matchup. And like I said, outside of him landing some sort of shot early on or in between a scramble with Ricky Simón, I think Ricky dominates this matchup. Like I said, I think it's by decision. I think he wins a dirty, grimy type of fight where he's just taking Oliveira down out in the open, out in space, to where Oliveira's going to struggle to get back to his feet, or Ricky's just grabbing him up against the fence, holding him, kind of keeping him in that, you know, close phone booth type of range and winning a dirty, gritty type of fight. I got Ricky Simón getting this one done. Moving on, Carlos Hernandez, Ray Tsuruya. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I did not, I apologize. I'm going Ray here. I think Ray's able to get this one done. Look, guys, anytime we see these prospects, the UFC is trying to give them an opportunity. But more specifically, what we're seeing is kind of the rise of the stars from Japan inside the UFC, right? With the signing of Kaya Sakura from Rizin, Tatsuro Taira getting a big opportunity against Alex Perez in an Apex main event. The UFC is aligning to head to Japan at some point, whether it's a fight night, a pay-per-view, that's yet to be seen, but they have an agenda that they are starting to push here. And I think that the grappling is going to be a difference in the matchup, in this matchup. While I think Carlos Hernandez is a good fighter, I just think the grappling of Ray is going to be a little bit too much. The striking is kind of starting to come along as well. Still a lot of opportunity for him to grow inside the flyweight division. I'm going Ray in this one. I'm going to say second round finish. I think that Ray's able to get a submission in this matchup. I'm going Ray. Moving on, Andrei Arlovski, Martin Buday. I'm going Martin Buday by, I'm going to say, second round TKO stoppage. Look, it breaks my heart, man, because Andrei Arlovski's been around for so long. I feel like he's just a dinosaur in the UFC at this point, right? He's been around for so many years, but it just, we have to be honest with what we're seeing at this point in his career. He's slowed down significantly. And it's getting harder and harder to pick him in these matchups, right? He's going out there and he's losing fights that back in the day Andrei Arlovski wouldn't have lost. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with age. Father Time catches up, you know, to us all at some point. And I just think Martin Buday, who's on the rise, while I don't think Buday is a world beater, he does have a way of kind of getting to guys and starting to pressure you. And we've seen when you close down Arlovski and you make him uncomfortable up against the fence, he doesn't have the answers like he used to back in the day. I think Martin Buday is able to march him down, kind of turn this into that dirty boxing type of range, type of matchup here. And I think he's able to clip Arlovski with a shot, sit him down. Arlovski covers up, and Martin Buday has to get pulled off by the referee. I'm going second round TKO stoppage by Martin Buday. Moving on, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, Gillian Robertson. This is going to be an absolute snoozer. This is going to be one of the worst fights on the card. Not because it's a WMMA fight, but just stylistically, I mean, this is atrocious. Michelle Waterson-Gomez, when's the last time we've seen her put on an exciting performance? I mean, it's been a while, right? And we just got to call it what it is. I think Gillian Robertson wins this fight. I think it's going to be by decision. I think she's going to kind of lay and pray on Michelle in this matchup. I mean, Michelle she's got, a good, we like the karate style, right? The karate hottie and all. I get it. It's fun. But back in the day, it was exciting. Now it just gets annoying at this point, right? She makes more sounds than she does anything else in there at this point. I think Gillian Robertson just takes her down, holds her down, and wins a very boring decision. This is a great time to take a bathroom break or grab some snacks. This is going to be one of the most boring fights on the card, if not the most boring, but I got Gillian Robertson by decision. Moving on up, we got Payton, Talbott, Yanis, Ghemmouri. I can't pronounce that correctly. However, Payton Talbott by total domination. Look, the UFC, Payton Talbott, after that last performance against Cameron Simon, they know what they're looking at here. They're looking at a guy who is on the rise, an absolutely high-level prospect that they are trying to push. They're not going to put him in harm's way at International Fight Week. This is built around Payton Talbott getting a win. I think he wins this thing by either first or second round finish. You know what? I'll go out on a limb and say first round finish. I think he gets this done by TKO. The ref has to step in here. Payton Talbott's just fast, man. Seems to have a pretty well-rounded game at this point. The striking is ferocious. He puts the combinations together well. The speed is impressive. I like what we have seen from Payton Talbott at this point. He has not shown me anything that I should say really points toward red flags, because early in the career, we're going to see some ups and downs, right? Guys are kind of getting used to being in the big spotlight of the UFC. However, I think Payton Talbott is going to level up after that performance against Cameron Simon. Now, I know Cameron Simon's not a world beater, but he is a good fighter. He does have pretty good striking, and Payton Talbott just ran right through him like he didn't exist. I like Payton Talbott in this matchup. I think he gets it done by first round finish. Moving on, Charles Jourdain and John Silva. I know people are excited about John Silva, right? We saw what he did to Wonder Boy's boy, Weston Wilson. But guys, Weston Wilson, I know he just pulled off kind of the impressive submission that really nobody saw coming in his last bout. But Weston Wilson, in my mind, is one of the worst fighters on the roster right now. And John Silva's out there yelling and screaming at him, and it's entertaining. And he's got some, he has a weird walkout, and it's annoying, to be honest with you. But I got Charles Jourdain winning this matchup. I think Charles Jourdain, when you start to make that first kind of big jump up in competition, where I know Charles Jourdain isn't a world beater in the weight class, but he cuts angles really well. He does have pretty good pinpoint striking. I like the way he utilizes his lateral movement and the footwork. You call him Air Jordan for a reason, man. The flying knees, I think he's got some dangerous weapons that he could utilize in this matchup. I think some of that veteran experience is going to come into play, because John Silva's just been the bully at this point, right? He's never been in there with a guy that, that's okay if John Silva's going to walk forward. Charles Jourdain will play the Matador role well. He'll move laterally. I think he's going to set up some of these shots. I don't know if he gets a finish, though, because John Silva strikes me as a very durable guy. So I'm going to go Charles Jourdain by decision. I think that he's able to get this one done. Maybe John Silva steals a round in there, but I'm going to go decision win. At least 2 rounds go to Charles Jourdain, if not all 3. I'm going Charles Jourdain. Okay, moving on. Cub Swanson, Andrei Fili. I really want to pick Cub Swanson, but I got to go Andrei Fili, and I think that it happens by second round stoppage. And it just breaks my heart, man, because I hate when we see these guys who are become legends almost, right? I mean, Cub Swanson's been around for forever, but he's not the same guy, man. He's not the same guy. While he does, still have some pretty good striking, he's always down for a good scrap. I just think Andrei Fili, he's rangy. He has a little more youth on his side, the power. And I know Andrei Fili, he's a little chinny as well. He's not afraid to kind of get into a firefight. And that's one of the reasons that if you are rooting for Cub Swanson, or you are picking Cub Swanson, there's a little bit of hope here because of the fact that Andrei Fili likes to put himself in harm's way. But I just think Fili's speed is going to be a little bit of an issue for Cub Swanson. I'm going second round stoppage, TKO stoppage for Andrei Fili to get this done. Okay, moving on. Joe Pyfer, Marc-Andre, Barriault. Now, there's one thing I want to bring up about Joe Pyfer. This is a hair transplant, Joe Pyfer, man. This is a different cat that you're going to see in there for International Fight Week. This is a man that's looking at himself in the mirror. He's got some better hair now. He's not balding the way he was. No, I'm just playing, man. Look, Joe Pyfer's a guy that I watched ever since he's an amateur. I got to see him fight live at Art of War. And I've just been watching pretty much his entire pro career, man. And I've always said, you guys have heard me say before, Joe Pyfer has outstanding power. Outstanding power. And what we saw in his last matchup against Jack Hermanson, I think is kind of, making people go, oh, he got fraud checked and this and that. Look, that was a mistake by the UFC that they're going to learn from. Don't put these prospects in 5-round main events, especially at the Apex, or just in a 5-rounder period. Give them a 3-round fight, because if that was a 3-round fight, Joe Pyfer probably wins at least 2 out of the 3 rounds against Jack Hermansson, and we're not having a discussion like we are now. This is a step back in competition. Jack Hermansson's a crafty veteran. He's got good footwork. He has good kicks. He knows how to use the jab. He knows how to win. And he showed that against Joe Pyfer. But I think Pyfer's going to be pissed off. He's going to have an edge to him in this matchup. And Marc-Andre Barriault plays right into the style of Joe Pyfer, right? Marc-Andre Barriault just likes to kind of march forward. He's very stationary to where that just plays right into Joe Pyfer's game, man. Pyfer's got pretty good hand speed. He's got really good power. He's got a good jab. I think he's able to finish Marc-Andre Barriault. Honestly, I'm going first round knockout by Joe Pyfer. I think he's able to get this done. I think he makes it look relatively easy. International Fight Week. They want to get Joe Pyfer back on the high horse. I got Joe Pyfer. Moving on to the main card. Ian Garry, Michael Venom Page. I went back and forth on this one a lot, man. I made a video when this fight was announced. I was like, Michael Venom Page is getting this done. And then I was like, man, I think that Ian Garry can get this done. I really do. He's got good fight IQ, the low kicks. But then I have to remind myself of the fact that I've watched a lot of MVP's career, man. From Bellator, him doing BKFC with Platinum Mike Perry. I think MVP wins this fight. Now, I don't think that this is going to be the most exciting matchup, so I'm going to go MVP by decision. Now, the reason I think MVP gets this done is while Ian Garry, I think he has very high fight IQ. He's a very good fighter. He's a very good striker. And I know people don't like Ian Garry. He's cringe. Like, I'm not a big Ian Garry fan, but he does have good striking. He's got very good striking. He has high fight IQ. But everyone seems to think that Ian Garry all of a sudden is this world-class, high-level grappler. Like, I'm not saying that Ian Garry has bad grappling, but I'm not so sure that he has better grappling than Kevin Holland, right? Kevin Holland, I would argue, probably has better submissions than Ian Garry. And people want to point out, oh, well, the way to beat MVP is to take him down, utilize the wrestling. Look at what Logan Storley did in Bellator. And people don't know who the hell Logan Storley is. Logan Storley is an outstanding wrestler, training over at Kill Cliff FC. He's a far better grappler than Ian Garry. And I think if you're going to try to implement the grappling game plan, it has to be one of these high-level grapplers that's able to get to MVP, take him down and control him, and threaten with submissions. I don't think Ian Garry is that kind of guy. I think he's going to try to sit at range, pick and poke at MVP, try to time him on the way in, try to catch him off guard like Douglas Lima did with a calf kick, try to throw a right hand down the middle to catch him. Is that likely? I mean, it could happen, but I think MVP, honestly, I think he's going to stun on Ian Garry, man. And while I do think that this is going to be a little bit of a boring fight, Ian Garry, it tends to be a pick and poke type of style, where MVP, it's a lot of crazy, wild, big, explosive actions that look better to the judges, in my opinion. So I think that MVP is going to win a decision. I'm going to go 29-28 decision. I think MVP gets this done. But nonetheless, I could see a scenario where someone gets finished, right? We saw the spinning elbow that MVP was able to land on Kevin Holland. Ian Garry does have good striking. I think this is a fun matchup. But again, I don't know that this is going to be the most entertaining fight. I think MVP gets it done. Moving on. Mayra, Bueno, Silva, Macy, Chiasson. This shouldn't be on the main card, right? I feel like we all know that by now. But if I'm going to give a prediction, I'm going Mayra, Bueno, Silva. Look, Chiasson, I think that maybe you could give her a little bit of the striking advantage, but I don't think it's by much. I think Bueno Silva's striking has came along in terms of the grappling, especially the jiu-jitsu department. Mayra, Bueno, Silva is definitely better in that department. Coming off of an embarrassing performance against Raquel Pennington. Also to Raquel Pennington. That was one of the worst fights we've seen in recent memory. I think that she's going to have hopefully a fire under her, Mayra Bueno Silva, to get this thing done a little bit more impressively. I think she comes out there, and I think that she wins a boring decision over Macy Chiasson. I'm going Mayra Bueno Silva. Moving on, Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze. I got Anthony Smith by decision, and I could see a scenario where we see Anthony Smith submit Roman Dolidze, but I'm going to go finish, right? Roman Dolidze has shown that he is durable, he is tough. But to me, Roman Dolidze, he has decent jiu-jitsu, but outside of that, I don't think he's that good of a fighter. I've been on the record saying I think that he is the worst guy in the middleweight rankings right now. And I understand that this is at light heavyweight, which I think that plays a little bit to the advantage of Anthony Smith. He was preparing for a fight. He had more time to know that he was taking a fight before Roman Dolidze. Dolidze being up at 205, where people are like, oh, he's not cutting as much weight, he should feel great. Sometimes maybe you feel a little bit lethargic, a little lazier in there. I don't think that he's going to have a significant advantage in terms of the speed. But again, Anthony Smith on paper, he should win this matchup in my opinion. But I think Anthony Smith kind of has a chip on his shoulder. I think, this thought of him fighting Alex Pereira is kind of motivating him. I think that, in terms of the grappling, everyone's so quick to say Roman Dolidze may have some of the better grappling. I think Anthony Smith can out-grapple him. I really do. I think he's got the better boxing. I think in terms of overall striking, I know Anthony Smith's kind of slow these days, but I think overall he's a more well-rounded fighter. I think Anthony Smith wins this thing by decision. So I got Anthony Smith. Moving on. Co-main event, Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez. Now, at first, I was like, man, is the hype real with Diego Lopez, right? And I wanted to see what we could see against Sodiq Yusuff in that matchup, right? He took a fight on short notice against Movsar Evloev. We saw some impressive things against Diego Lopez. We saw Movsar, a guy with a grappling heavy style, be able to control Diego Lopez, which surprised me a little bit. But ever since, man, what have we seen with Diego Lopez? A very Charles Oliveira-like approach. He starts very fast, like a bat out of hell, races across, gets right in your face. He's got a really, really good low kick that he likes to utilize to try to slow down the movement, close you down, and land those good shots on the inside. He's got really brutal uppercuts. He's got good boxing. He's a big guy for the weight class, so it does concern me if this fight goes into the later rounds. But just where Brian Ortega is at in his career, man, as much as I like Brian Ortega, I think he's a G. I think he's a warrior. I think he has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the game. I do think he has better jiu-jitsu and better grappling than Diego Lopez. However, the difference is the striking. Brian Ortega's taken a tremendous amount of damage throughout his career. I'm going Diego Lopez by first round finish, man. I think if he's going to get this done, it's going to have to be in the first round, because I think if Brian makes it through the first round, the tides are going to shift and it should favor Ortega, because, that means that he's going to be able to implement some of the grappling, be able to stick and move on the outside. I just think it's a tall order, man. Diego Lopez, a guy that looks like he's in great shape, a guy that the UFC is clearly pushing, giving him a co-main event slot on International Fight Week. I think they want him to run through Brian Ortega, then they can add him to the sphere and really try to blow this guy up, because he's got the style, he's got the swag, he's got the package the UFC's looking for. I think Diego Lopez finishes Brian Ortega. I'm going to say TKO stoppage in the first round. I don't think he submits Brian Ortega. That would be crazy if he could. But again, if this fight goes past the first round, I think that the tide should shift at Ortega. I think we'll win the fight. But I think Diego Lopez not allowing Brian Ortega to kind of get a feel for the fight, jumping on him right away. We've seen Yair Rodriguez drop Brian Ortega, and I know Yair is a wild man, but Diego Lopez has some of the most power in the division, especially with the boxing, his aggressiveness, the way that, his fighting style has looked recently. I just don't think Brian Ortega has the same type of grappling skills as a Movsar Evloev. Even though he has better submissions than Movsar, I don't think in terms of his entries and the takedowns, I don't think that is going to be enough to get Diego Lopez to the floor. I think Diego Lopez wins this by first round stoppage. And last but not least, the main event of the evening for the light heavyweight strap, Alex Poatan Pereira, Yuri Prochazka. I got to go Alex Pereira by first round knockout. Guys, I've went back and forth on this one. I've toyed with the idea of picking Yuri in the rematch. I want the trilogy, man. I would love to see a trilogy between these guys. But I just can't pick Yuri off of the fact that we have not seen him make adjustments to the leg kicks. Look, I like Yuri Prochazka a lot, man. I think that he just seems like a solid guy. I don't know how you could dislike Yuri, man. He is a big dude for the weight class. We saw a little bit of a size difference when he fought Pereira the first time around. However, I said after UFC 300 in my recap video, man, and I've been on the record saying it numerous times, Alex Pereira physically look the best that I think we have seen him heading into that Jamal Hill matchup. He is officially an actual light heavyweight. His frame, he just looks filled out. He looks big, and he still has the speed and the timing and the way that he throws these kicks, man. He does not rotate the shoulders. He almost boots you with the instep of his foot. It is a very different style of kick that it's very hard to prepare for, man. And, I saw Yuri training, and he's got a guy emulating Alex Pereira. There's only one Alex Pereira, man. This guy, Yuri, I understand he has the power. And yes, he might have been winning that fight the first time against Alex. However, I think Alex has made some adjustments. I think technically coming into the Hill fight, I think they've cleaned some things up a little bit, which is crazy to think that technically he's better than he was the last time he fought Yuri. I just think no matter what stance Yuri is in, he's so long and bladed, and while he is aggressive and while he is a big guy, inside the weight class, he does have good power. Yuri's best weapon is being unpredictable. And I think that having Alex being in there with him already, I just think that the unpredictability is still there. I think he's still going to be cautious. But Alex's game plan against Gillian is to fight behind the jab and utilize the calf kicks and stay at range and stay defensively responsible. He doesn't dip and bob his head all over the place to where you could possibly get caught by a crazy shot he doesn't see coming by Gillian. But the way that Alex throws his shots, they're short, they're sharp, they're clean. I just think that there's just really no room for error for Gillian in the striking, man. While I think that he landed some good shots on Payton in the first fight, I just don't know that Payton is going to show him the same type of respect we saw the first time around. I think he's filled out into the light heavyweight frame. I think he has a 3, going up to heavyweight on his mind. I think that, there's a lot at stake here for Payton, and I think that he goes out there. I think he starches Yuri Prochazka in the first round, and it breaks my heart, man, because I really like Yuri. I want to see the guy get the belt back. I don't want to see Yuri lose, but just going off of that fight, what we saw against Alexander Rakic, he took a lot of damage in terms of the leg kicks, and he showed that I've said before, man, he just does not have an answer for the leg kicks. His answer is to counter with straight punches down the middle, which is a counter. However, when you're getting tagged with too many, it hinders your movement. And what we've seen from Pereira, he likes to compromise your movement, make you a stationary target to where he either hunts you down or you get reckless, try to close the distance, and then he's able to catch you like we saw the first time around when these guys fought. Yuri's best path, in my opinion, man, is probably to mix in the grappling, but he's just not a grappler. He has decent submissions. We saw him, able to put Pereira on his back, but Pereira stays so defensively safe on the ground, man. And again, Yuri tired himself out a little bit. I think we saw a little bit of fatigue from him in terms of utilizing the grappling a little bit. While I think he has good power, he does have the danger. Yuri Prochazka, a lot of his finishes have came by first round finish. So if he's going to get this done, he's got to get Alex out of there in the first round. But I think that he just leaves too many openings for a guy like Pereira, who's very calm, very calculated, who's just really at his peak right now. The UFC wanted this rematch, not just because it's a huge fight, but also they hope that they can get Alex Pereira another win to continue to build that star power of his in a matchup like this. I just think Alex Pereira is able to get this done, although I am a little worried, man. He's been doing a lot of boxing sparring, which a lot of that has to do with, I think that his toes are busted up. I think that there's a little bit of an issue there from heading into the Hill fight and then after the Hill fight, some broken toes. So that's why he's probably been wearing the boxing and wrestling shoes. But nonetheless, his boxing's looking better than ever. We know about the kicks. I honestly think that he could go in there, rely on the boxing, and be just fine as well. I just think Alex Pereira is just too sharp, too calculated, and I think that he's a little bit more aggressive in this matchup. Throws the jab to the body, sets up the left hook, beats up the legs of Yuri Prochazka to get him out of there in the first round. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video, comment your predictions down below. If you made it to the end of the video, comment Shama, subscribe to the channel, help your boy out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.